Each day, Israel pours millions of gallons of water into land where less than 1 inch of rain falls yearly. A nation smaller than New Jersey, gambling its future on the idea that a desert could be transformed. In a place where the negev stretches endlessly and summer heat scorches at 122 degrees Fahrenheit, this was not waste. It was David Ben-Gurion's ultimate test of survival. How did they build a river across nothingness? And what did it take to turn an unforgiving wasteland into farms, forests, and cities? The answer begins with the desert's brutal math. The Negev stretches across 5,000 square miles, more than half of Israel's land. Yet for centuries it offered almost nothing in return. Summer heat here climbs to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the earth to dust and the wind to fire. In the south, the sky gives up less than 1 inch of rain a year. Even in the north, where the desert softens, 8 inches is the best it can manage. The land is a maze of sand dunes rising 100 feet, broken by rocky mountains and deep ancient craters. Israel ranks 148th in the world by land area, with barely 8,000 square miles to its name. Every acre counts, yet more than half seemed lost to heat and stone. These are not just harsh conditions, they are numbers that make ordinary solutions impossible. In a country this small, surrendering the Negev would mean surrendering the future. The only way forward would require something the world had never seen. David Ben-Gurion stood before his cabinet and declared the desert was not Israel's enemy, but its greatest test. For him, the Negev was more than a stretch of sand and stone. It was a challenge to the nation's imagination and resolve. He called it a test of creative potential, insisting that Israel's survival depended on transforming the barren south into a center of life. Ben-Gurion pressed for action, not just words. In 1951, he ordered the first steps toward a national water project, determined to scatter settlements and opportunity across the entire country, not just its green north. He argued that every drop diverted to the Negev would secure Israel's future and prove that a people could outthink their limitations. While others doubted the wisdom of pouring resources into what looked like emptiness, Ben-Gurion saw the desert as a promise waiting to be kept. He did not live to see the Negev bloom, but his vision set the nation on a path that would turn the impossible into reality. Construction of the national water carrier began in 1953 and finished in 1964, creating an 80-mile artery of pipes, tunnels, and open channels stretching from the Sea of Galilee to the edge of the Negev. Mekarot's engineers faced a landscape that forced water to climb nearly 600 meters, and the project required some of the world's largest pumping stations and a web of reinforced tunnels. The Sapir pumping station alone lifted water from below sea level, and the Eshkol Tunnel, 13 kilometers long, carried it beneath hills that once divided north from south. This was engineering on a national scale. At full power, the system moves 19 million gallons every hour, enough to fill an Olympic pool in less than 10 seconds. Only 3% of that water is lost along the way, a rate far beyond what the United Kingdom or Germany achieve. The payoff is visible in Beersheba, where over 200,000 people now live in a city that would have been impossible without this engineered river. The carrier did not just deliver water, it delivered the possibility of life in the desert. The Sea of Galilee had always been Israel's lifeline, but as drought stretched into year after year, the water level dropped to a line few thought they would ever see. Reservoirs shrank, pumps fell silent. For the first time, the great river in the desert, the national water carrier, could no longer guarantee water for the country. Mekarot's engineers watched as their system, built to conquer nature, was humbled by it. The crisis demanded a response that went beyond patchwork fixes. Israel would have to invent a new source of water or risk losing everything the carrier had made possible. The answer came from the Mediterranean. Along the coast, a new kind of plant began to rise, one designed not to store water, but to make it. The Sorek desalination facility, the largest of its kind in Israel, could pull salt from seawater and deliver up to 39 billion gallons a year. Pipes, hundreds of miles of them, were laid at a cost of $250 million, connecting the coast to the country's heart. The system's flow was reversed, sending fresh water north to refill the Sea of Galilee itself. What began as a desperate measure became the backbone of a reinvented water grid. Engineers who once fought gravity now fought chemistry and scale, learning to turn the sea itself into a reservoir. The days of relying on a single lake were over. With desalination, Israel traded vulnerability for resilience, building a network that could survive even when the rains did not come. Beneath Israel's cities and fields, the mountain aquifer holds the country's most precious reserve of fresh water. Hydrologists have calculated its safe yield at about 95 billion gallons a year. Yet today, extraction hovers near 158 billion gallons, almost double what nature can safely provide. Salt water lies just below, threatening to seep upward and spoil the supply if overpumping continues. Utility planners face a stark choice: risk permanent damage, or find a way to stretch every drop further. The answer is not just in finding more water, but in using what is already there again and again. Israel has poured $750 million into building a national web of wastewater treatment plants since the early 2000s. The result is a recycling rate that stands at 87%, far ahead of the United States, where less than 10% of sewage is reused. The Shafdan facility near Tel Aviv treats 97 million gallons each day, sending clean, reclaimed water south through pipelines to the Negev. 60% of the desert's greenery now grows with recycled water. This circular approach is more than a technical fix. It is a strategy for survival in a place where water is never taken for granted. Every gallon reused means less pressure on fragile aquifers and another season of growth in fields that once stood empty. The system is built for resilience, not just for today, but for the generations that will depend on these same sources tomorrow. Yatir Forest rises where only scrub and dust once stood, stretching across 11 square miles of the northern Negev. 4 million trees, mostly Aleppo pine, anchor the soil and drink from water that crosses half the country to reach them. Even as droughts have claimed up to 10% of the forest in recent years, Yatir remains a living experiment, absorbing carbon on a scale to rival wetter lands and drawing scientists from NASA's FluxNet project to study its resilience. Beyond the trees, the Negev's fields break every rule of desert farming. 40% of Israel's total agriculture now grows here, in soil once written off as hopeless. Tomatoes yield 6 times the global average. Citrus groves and cotton fields thrive on drip irrigation, a homegrown technology that delivers water straight to the roots, drop by drop. Dairy farmers in the desert coax more milk from each cow than any of their peers in North America. Beneath the sand, ancient geothermal water, heated over thousands of years, feeds fish farms where tilapia and barramundi swim in warm pools. An 86-acre facility alone produces 2,000 tons of barramundi each year, recycling fish waste to fertilize nearby olive trees. The same relentless sun that once drove people away now powers the region's future. South of Beersheba, the Ashalim solar complex glitters with more than 50,000 heliostats, all focused on a tower that rises 853 feet above the desert floor. The plant generates 320 gigawatt-hours annually, enough to run 120,000 homes and keep the pumps, farms, and cities alive. The Negev, once a byword for emptiness, has become a showcase of what water and the will to use it wisely can create. Today, Israel recycles more water than any other nation, and it exports its desert technology worldwide. As water scarcity accelerates across the globe, the Negev stands as both a promise and a warning. The future belongs to those who treat the impossible as just the starting line. What do you think? Vision or gamble?